This is festivalPass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next. Okay, friends, welcome back to festivalPass Stories, where we take you behind the scenes. And today we take you behind the brand, the man behind the brands, Geoff Cottrill. Geoff, what is happening today?
Not much. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited. About this.
This is great. I mean, there's just so much we can get into with the brands that you have worked with over the years. And we'll just get right into it. As they say on these podcasts, I don't know why we do that. It's like, let's get right into it. It's like, what else are we going to do? Like, let's just BS for half.
Not get into it.
Let's get right into it here, guys. But you have worked for some of the biggest brands on the planet: Proctor Gamble, Coca Cola, Starbucks, Converse. I'm wearing some Chuck Taylors right now. You're just going to have to take my word for it, okay? As we have for the last year, we just had to take everyone's word that they were wearing pants, undergarments, shoes.
Exactly.
I got socks on, the whole thing. So
yeah, good.
Right, so I love them. I love that. It goes way back to sixth grade with me with Converse, but we'll get into that later. But as a marketer, how would a brand like that, or maybe even a startup brand, how would they navigate the year that we just had?
Oh my gosh, there's no playbook for this past year. It's just a snowball running downhill out of control. With COVID, the biggest health crisis we've ever dealt with a crazy election, with a runoff in Georgia, with the social unrest, like all this stuff has happened, and it just keeps happening. And, I know we're all excited about putting it behind us, but while we're in it, I think it's an interesting time to stop and sort of think about what's really important, and for a brand to actually stop and think about what's really important in the lives of their consumers. And it's time for, I think, brands to show whether or not they actually really do care, or they're just going to tell me that they care,
Yeah.
Commercial.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I saw that you put a piece on Twitter, or you responded to somebody last Wednesday after the insurrection is the only word for it, right?
Right.
And after that happened, you were quoting somebody who was saying, brands, hold on one second. And it was making me think that I saw a lot after the George Floyd murders.
Yeah.
George Floyd murder, I should say. But it seemed that some of the brands came out knee-jerk, like, oh, hey, no, we're all about social justice. Oh, hey, we're all about diversity, inclusion. We're all about equity and equality. We're all about these things. Yeah. It's like, really? Well, where have you been?
That's right.
For the last, your board of directors is pretty undiverse. Your marketing is to a very specific group. I guess the big question is, where do brands stand when it comes to a time of crisis? Should they take a beat, as you just said there, or do you dive in when it's a situation like we saw in a year of situations that we never saw?
It's the pending question in marketing today, right? What do you do? Because there's a generation of young people coming up that are demanding that brands weigh in and get into these conversations. And then, there are a lot of brands that sit there in a boardroom and look at each other and say, well, gosh, we're trying to sell our stuff to everybody. Do we want to alienate half the population? Right. But I think it's what you do. It's how you behave. It's not always what you say. And I think we as marketers always go to the lever of advertising. Let's make an ad and tell them that we care, and tell them that we understand how they feel. And then let's offer them 0% financing for 3 years. And it's like, wait a minute. Wait a second. Hang on.
And then throw everything at the end of the commercial into a quick disclaimer. 0% financing.
You still want me to buy a car
for people with 75 credit on it.
Yeah, exactly. So
what did he say? What did he say there?
So I think it's what you do, and it's how you behave, and it's the actions you take. All of the social unrest, the diversity in America, it is a massive problem. And it has been a massive problem for a long time. And corporate America has said, anytime there's flare-ups, Oh, we're in it with you. We're going to write a check to this organization and it's going to make everything better. And then it doesn't really make everything better because the checks are nice, the funds are nice, but where's the accountability? Where's the accountability for the change? The accountability for the progress? There isn't. Companies will say, well, I wrote that check and, I spent $200 million on XYZ. And it's like, well, okay, but where's the accountability? How are things changing? And I so wanted one of the companies to stand up and say, we don't stand for this. This is wrong. And yes, we're going to write the check to do whatever, but we're going to fix our house. We're going to fix what's in our control. Our company is going to fix this within its walls. And these are the specific things that we're going to do. You don't hear a lot of that.
Or a 10-year commitment. You hear, we're going to commit to diversity or something. I was talking to somebody last week from a major film festival, and we were talking about the authenticity of it, and saying, you could go to these brands now and say, jump in now. You say you care. Yeah. How about a 10-year deal to sponsor our Festival of Diversity and Inclusion, sponsor our Gay Rights Festival, sponsor our Black Film Festival, which they have under their umbrella. Right. And he's like, pretty much like, on one hand, we're happy to get the money. On two, we're putting our foot on the pedal a little bit here and saying, if you really want to be with us, don't just write the check, be along for the ride, show up to the events and be here for the long haul.
That's right. And, in corporate America, when you're a CMO, for example, when you're putting together your business plan for the year and you go to senior management and you're asking for the funds to support the brand, you have a business plan. And your business plan says you're going to deliver this, and the business plan has these steps, and the business plan has these deliverables. And once a quarter, I come to see you, and I've either hit my numbers that I said I was going to, and you keep giving me money, or you say, wow, you're way off your plan. We're going to pull the money back. It's results oriented. I would love for corporate America to take that same approach to their philanthropic spend. We're going to spend this much money. Okay, what's the plan? What specifically is it going to deliver? How can we check in quarterly to see if we're on track? How do we know that this money that we're using is driving to true results? Just like we treat our marketing dollars, we should treat our philanthropic dollars the same way. But to me, there's a lack of measurement and a lack of real accountability for corporations to step in and really, really participate in the change.
And I think philanthropy in the last year especially has taken on a whole new role in advocacy. Yes. Where it's not just enough to, we all want to fight cancer. We all want to,
of course,
feed hungry people. We want to help the homeless, and we can go down these line of causes all day. Yeah. But there's got to be people who really advocate for the homeless and how they got there. And there's got to be people who advocate for people who are living on the margins of society and say, how did this happen? How can we stop it? If we really care, we really want to make systemic change, let's look at the root of this and let's put that long-term commitment and be real advocates for it.
Yeah.
And exactly. I think, because this is festivalPass stories, and I think that through festivals, when we get back to doing them, we can, because I believe that, all these festivals have a charitable angle to it, but I believe that there needs to be some sort of advocacy or social justice message, especially to music festivals, especially to young people. As you said, they are demanding. And you even hear the young politicians using that word all the time, not like we suggest or we think, here's what we'll deliver. The word demand is always there. So sometimes that has to happen when you want to make real change. It's like, we're not just going to sit around and wait for it. So as these festivals are coming back and they're looking for sponsorship dollars. Now, I know when you were CMO of those major brands we spoke about earlier, you're running these marketing budgets, and you said you'd go into the CEO and say, here's my business plan, here's my marketing budget, and this is where I want to spend that kind of cash. Now, you were inundated with these requests from everybody. I saw on your LinkedIn that you're like, here is from the Coca Cola days. You're like, here is what's going on with our advertising partners or our creative digital partners, and we're really happy with them right now. So don't come to me with brands. Don't come with me with ideas right now and flood my inbox, because I'm just not going to listen. We're happy here. We're spending our money in the right place. But when you're inundated with those requests and you see 100 great music festivals, And if you're in that position right now where you see these diverse music festivals coming to you for money, how do you allocate that? How do you decide where to invest the brand's money?
Well, I mean, you pull back and there's experiences, how much you're going to invest in that. There's, advertising, production, all the different elements, sponsorship, all that kind of stuff. You kind of pull back and allocate it accordingly based on where your consumers, what you should do anyway, based on where your consumers' passions lie. I think you got to understand your consumers and what's important to them and be there at those places that's important to them and add some level of value. If a festival came to me and presented me with a sponsorship, but I had no opportunity to really add any value to the experience, then I would probably pass. And I'll give you a really good example. Years ago, the first time I went to Coachella, it was, one of the early, maybe the second or third Coachella. And I was with a bunch of my friends who were in marketing and music, and we were having an amazing day. It was felt like 120 degrees outside.
It's a dry heat, though. It's dry.
Right, of course. We were walking from one stage to the next stage through this beautiful field, and there was a brand new car sitting there with brand people with their clipboards, and they wanted, and I won't tell you what kind of car it is, but they said, "Look, have you seen the new such and such?" And it occurred to me at that moment, someone who works in brands, somebody who works in sponsorships, that like this car that was sitting there was just in my way. Like literally, I was literally in my way from one stage to the next. You got in my way. And I thought, and I said to the brand person at the time, and this was many, many years ago, "Why are you even here? Like, you're just in my way, and I'm sorry, but you should tell the brand team that like they got in our way today."
Like blocking your view or your entrance to the next stage.
Totally. They were just in the middle of my path versus like, I would have loved for them to say, "We brought a ton of these cars and we're going to give you free shuttle rides from XY, from this place to this place." So I would have been like, "Whoa, that's adding value. Maybe I'll buy one of these cars because you got me inside of it and it was cool." But if you're just in my way, then you're just in my way. And I use that as an example because so many brands are in the way.
Yeah.
Don't like that car company didn't think about why I came.
Mm-hmm.
They thought about why they wanted to be there, but they didn't think about why I came to the festival.
Sure. They're just there to sell cars and get their brand out there. And I love what you said there with the activation, as they say, on site with the brand.
Right.
To have, like, if that car was shuttling you back and forth and you're inside and you're like, "What is this car?"
Right. And
there's somebody who's an ambassador for the brand driving you from place to place. And you're like, "Well, I'm not in the market for a car today, but I know people who are, and I will be in the market for a car. And I'm going to definitely consider this," because it was a very positive experience.
Yeah.
So you just gave us a very, very good negative experience, a definition of a negative experience. And obviously that affected the brand, at least in your head and the circle of people around you.
Yes, still to this day.
Yeah, and you're still telling it. And I'm sure you've actually told the brand of car to people. Richard Lewis used to do a stand-up bit where he was talking in the early 80s. He goes, "I don't want to say the name of the car, but it rhymes with Maguire." And like, and they used to have these crazy things. I used to valet park cars. Now I'm bragging about the jobs I've had over my life.
Nice.
But I remember when I was just able to drive, or even before, when they would just be like, "You can valet park. You look like you can drive." And, you'd get into that car and these crazy things would light up on the dashboard. And you're like, "What does any of this mean? How do I know that means we're low on oil? What is this?" He did a great bit on that. You should look it up. But anyway.
Yeah, I just feel like I won't call them out because we've all done it. We've all been. That's just one example of, I know I've done plenty of things that were in people's way, and it was just an example that just solidified it for me.
And that can really hurt a brand, at least temporarily.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
So what would be the definition of a positive, or let's maybe call it a perfect outcome from a festival or large sponsorship that you invested a brand's money into? And you don't have to say the brand. You can just say,
I think
thing.
I think South by Southwest, in the early days was a great music festival. Then it became music technology. It's turned into something completely different, and it's still amazing.
Yeah.
But it's completely different than its original onset.
I have learned that it's called the cool people. People in the know now just call it South by.
Yeah, South by.
South by.
Exactly.
It's like, whoa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I was at Converse, we were going to South by Southwest, and we thought about, okay, let's think about the festival and the experience and the people that are there. So we wound up, instead of sponsoring one big thing, we did 3 completely different things, 3 smaller things that talked to 3 completely separate groups of people. One, we were at the Fader Fort, which was a big central place where there was shows every day, and Converse was putting it on. We had our backdrop on the stage, and we had some artists that we had worked with that were performing, and that was great. And that was everybody that was sort of the general person that went to South by could get access to that. Then down the street, across a dark alley, behind some fence that was barely even standing up, we rented a recording studio.
Okay.
And you would never know. It wasn't branded. We didn't put Converse signs out, but we identified bands from Texas that weren't invited to South by Southwest, and we invited them to South by Southwest, South by, and we recorded with them.
You're in the know, man. That's why you call it South by.
We brought them into a recording studio with professional equipment, professional producers and engineers, and we recorded. We let them have a couple of free days of recording in the studio, and it wasn't a broad scale activation that we talked about, but we made friends with those artists. We did something. We were useful to them. So that was the second thing. And then across the street, there was a bar called the Scoot Inn. If you've ever been to Austin, I don't know if it's still there, but it was amazing.
I hope it's still there.
We decided to have a skateboarding competition. Like, why not, right? So we called it the Texas Death Match. We built a huge bowl. We had concerts all day, and we had skaters from all over the Southwest and all over Texas in basically a skateboarding competition. We had all of our professional skateboarders there. So 3 completely different looks from one brand, understanding that the different cultures, the different subcultures that were attending the festival. So instead of like sponsoring the main stage for the week, we decided to do 3 strategic things, and it worked great. So the people that went to the Scoot Inn, to the skateboarding thing, walked away with Converse's really understand skateboarding. That's what we wanted. And then for the recording, we wanted artists to think we were super artist friendly, because we were. So there was that. And then we wanted the general population at the thing to think, man, Converse brought us this great stage and all these great acts.
Yeah. And that's sort of the evolution of the Converse brand. It has gone from being a basketball sneaker to a pop culture sneaker to skateboarding. And then as skateboarding developed, the other brands, Airwalk and so on, rock and roll. But it was always kind of in all those areas for years anyway. You look at old pictures of kids playing stickball in Brooklyn in the 50s. They're wearing Chuck Taylors.
For sure.
You look at and then you guys teamed up over the years with John Varvatos, and that was such a cool branding. I don't have a strong sneaker game, but I did. I had these Varvatos with no laces.
Oh yeah.
Just in case I got in trouble at that night where I was going to do whatever. I get to the police station. I'm like, hey, I don't even have any laces, so
right.
So you can just throw me right in the tank.
Well, that's funny because we had a great relationship with John Varvatos, and he's an amazing designer. His store in the Lower East Side, the old CBGB's.
Yeah, I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, and what's funny is when they opened that store, because that was like the place, the mecca for punk rock.
Oh yeah.
And what we had was, the night they had the store opening, they had this big party. They had a concert in there. It was crazy. And then you had people inside rocking Chucks on the stage, and then you had people outside protesting that they had taken a punk rock place and but the protesters were also wearing Chucks, and it was a moment. Oh my gosh!
Hey, we appeal to everyone.
We're in both spots here, but yeah, John was great. And on that laceless thing, it was an old model that he saw when he was going through our archives, and he was like, "Oh, I like that," and he put his spin on it and brought back the laceless sneaker, for us. Like he was terrific.
I think I had 4 different. I had one that was like black leather, and it had, but like the classic Chuck white toe, and it was
for sure.
And I had these like army green ones. They were just, I was the coolest guy. I bought one pair in LA, and I was like Fred Siegel, and I was like, who's cooler than me right now?
Right.
I immediately walked outside and found 75 other people who in West Hollywood who were much, much cooler. Santa Monica, they were much, much cooler than me. I didn't even know where it was. But from brands to boards and to nonprofit boards, I mean, you sit on the board of multiple nonprofits, and I gave you a little bit of background on myself as an auctioneer and how we've had to pivot this year. And I know we should have to take a shot when I say pivot or do some push-ups or something, because we've blown through that word. We have to come up with a new word, but we did. It was the word. So we went from being in rooms of 600, 800 people to running around and creating energy and firing people up and pulling every dollar out of the room and audiences going crazy, to staring into a screen. But it was still important to connect with donors. So when it was apparent to you and to everybody else and to all the boards that you're sitting on that the world was going to be canceled, so to speak, that the events that you had planned were going to be canceled, and nonprofits rely, and I saw this a lot last year, how much of their annual budget comes from their live events, their in-person events. Yeah. Some unfortunately had to shut down because they're like, if we can't have the gala, if we can't have the golf outing, which you realize quickly people could actually have golf outings. They could. Right. It's outside, it's socially distanced.
Right.
Go on. I played in some golf outings and I was just out in the woods looking for my ball. So I was nowhere near anybody else in the course the entire time.
Yeah.
But point is, when it was like, how did you advise people on what to do? What was your advice to say, look, folks, here is what we need to do to stay in touch with these donors, during this crazy, crazy time?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's different based on the organization and the organization's needs. I just joined the board of an organization that I'm extremely excited about called the Giving Kitchen. Okay. And they're based in Atlanta. They're soon to be in a couple of other cities around the country. And it's an organization that raises money for food service workers. The people that work in restaurants, people that you go to a nice restaurant, the person that serves you, the person that greets you, the person that cooks your food, the person that cleans up, right? We often forget these people on a good night and at a dinner with friends. And, they can make or break whether or not you have a good night. But often these people are just sort of part of it, but sort of forgotten about. And a lot of them don't have insurance. There's a lot of problems with stress and suicide prevention, all these kinds of things. So this organization raises money to support them. And it's been fascinating for me. It's been incredible, but they've had to figure out new ways to constantly communicate their message. And, once you realize that, gosh, these people that I used to see at the restaurant I go to all the time, that restaurant's not there anymore. You start thinking through, oh my gosh, I wonder what these people are doing. So there's new, different ways. You just have to continue to communicate your mission. And unfortunately, some nonprofits' missions are super important to them, but in the grand scheme of what's been happening in the world, things have shifted a bit. So it's tough. It's really tough.
100%. And with the Giving Kitchen, this was something where that message was vital. I mean, that had to get out there. Yeah. So what did you guys do as an organization? Because I know in New York in particular, there were some of the restaurateurs and chefs and people like Josh Capon, who, if you've ever been to Lure Fish Bar in Soho or Bowery Meat Company, or those are El Toro Blanco. Those are his restaurants. And he went out immediately and was like, I need to help the people. This is my other family. These people have been with me for years. Did GoFundMe pages for the staff, not for the restaurant, not for his rent or anything else, for the staff. And he took care of those people before anybody else. And they delivered meals to frontline care workers. And these aren't just meals. These are Lure Fish Bar meals. These are, your check is not small when you walk out of these places. And, I know he wasn't delivering margaritas, but he was delivering, the great sushi and burgers and the great food that they have at these restaurants. The Tao group did the same thing. They're a little bit larger than Josh's group, but they stepped up and they took care of the people as well, and did the Tao fund. So what was the initiative, and how did you guys get out there and reach out to the people that you're helping?
Well, I think one of the benefits of this particular organization is a lot of the restaurant owners and chefs in Atlanta, in the Atlanta area, are also heavily involved in board members. So a lot of them did similar things to what you've said. But just to continue, they just continue to focus on, one, making sure there's kind of two things. One, making sure that they're still raising money, but two, this is the time when Giving Kitchen needs to really kick into gear.
Yeah.
It needs to kick into gear to provide the resources. Sometimes they're not always paying for the resources. Sometimes it's a connection point. Like, oh, you're having problems with this. Here's how you deal with this. So they've gone on the offense to make sure that they're over communicating, or is communicating as much as possible with the actual food service workers. I think their focus has been more on that recently than it has been on, raising money, although we still obviously need to do that.
Yeah. And there were just some organizations, as you mentioned, the missions are really important, but some of them, including organizations in the arts, just said, maybe right now is not the time.
That's right.
And we know how important music is. Yes. We know how important the arts are. I see behind you, it looks like you've got, I wouldn't say it's Woodstock, but I can see some guitars and peace signs.
Yes.
So and there's a huge guitar coming through the middle of that. I wasn't sure if it was a glare, but it's a guitar coming through it.
It's an amazing Shepherd Ferry piece. There you go. All
right.
Yeah.
Now, who is that?
Shepherd Ferry is.
Oh no, I know who Shepherd Ferry is. Sorry. No, I was saying, who's that in the picture? Is that?
That's Paul Simonon from the Clash.
Oh.
Yeah.
Shame on me.
Yeah.
Shame on me and my punk rock. I've lost the rights to wear any punk rock Converse ever again.
To be fair, I didn't show you the face until just a second ago. So, but yeah, no, Shepherd put that piece in a recording studio we built years ago, and then he gave me that piece after I left Converse. So it's an important piece of art for me.
Yeah, and the arts are so important. Music is so important. We all can't wait to get back to live music and shows and whatever, concerts, festivals, etc. But you've been involved in music for a long time, between your tenure at Hear Music with Starbucks, and then as vice chair of the board of directors for Music Cares. We were just talking about how important these nonprofits were and getting their message out there. When you did that with the Grammys. But what do you see for the future of live events and live shows and festivals and so on? When it comes to security, we've had a very interesting year. And people are talking about a reckoning with law enforcement and so on. So there's the security element going forward. How are young people going to interact with and perceive security at these festivals?
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the health concerns. When we want to get back, if I had a shot in my arm right now, I would just go grabbing people on the street and start dancing with them. Hopefully they had a shot as well.
Right.
But I mean, we want it all. We want to get back to it.
Yeah.
But there are those two major concerns. So how do you see that playing out going forward for live events?
So let me back up for a second. So one, I have expectations because if you look over our history, in times of the worst economic downturns, you can track, as we've come out of those, some of the best art and creativity that the world has ever seen comes out of those hard times. So I am convinced wholeheartedly that we're going to see amazing art. We're going to hear amazing, incredible new music from new voices, right? Because artists have had time to really, really think about what is going on, and they've got a lot of time on their hands. And I live with a couple of artists who have spent a lot of time focusing on their art. So I expect amazing things to come. It's coming. Will we get back to live shows? Absolutely. We need them. We have to have them. It's not just for the business, but yes, for the business, but for us, for the people who love music, the people that love that new song or that new artist and have to see them. It's going to come back. Will security be different? Sure. Will you maybe get screened to see if you've had a vaccine? Yeah. But so what? We've had throughout the years, things have changed with how we buy tickets, how we interact, how we get in and out of a concert. I mean, heck, when I was a kid, it was Tampa Stadium, general admission. They opened the doors at 9 o'clock in the morning. The show started at 8 o'clock at night. It was a free-for-all for your seat. And now it's completely different. So
you didn't even care about your seat.
No.
You just want to be in the arena.
Totally. And so I'm extremely optimistic about that coming back. I don't know when, right? And who's going to be first to be the brave artist or band that decides to be the first one, but it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. So I mean, there's a lot of people painting a doomsday scenario, like live music's never going to come back. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. It's coming back.
I am with you on that. And we saw it this past weekend with the NFL playoffs.
Right.
Buffalo allowed 16,000 or 6,700, excuse me.
Right.
There was a rumor out there that there was going to be 67,000 fans. And I was like, where's my phone? I have to tweet the governor. I have to yell at him. I have to be very angry on social media about this. 6,700 fans were there. And of course, 67,000 fans would have been there. That was grown men crying type stuff.
Yeah.
For Bills fans. And I know Bills fans, and I've been to that stadium, and I've tailgated there. And like, that's one thing they can't wait to bring back, is that Bills tailgate is absolutely legendary and dangerous too. Kids, don't try a Bills tailgate at home.
Yeah, I saw somebody jumping on a table and set themselves on fire.
It became a thing. It was just, that's if you're a chiropractor, move to Buffalo, because that's where you will just line people up. I think it'll be still some time, but it will come back, and there will be, art is what is going to pull us through this. Creativity and art is going to be the thing that saves us from insanity and saves us from ourselves. I'm convinced of it. It always has been. It's those creative, crazy people that always pull us and push us sometimes when we need it to new places. And I'm counting on the creative world, musicians, artists, writers, filmmakers to help us with that. Like Shepard Fairley, who gave us the hope.
Yes.
Gave us a painting that said hope, with somebody who did bring us hope. And there is hope on the horizon with the new administration and so on. Yeah. But speaking of the arts and creativity, we were all locked down for a long time. We still are. So I have a quick section. I know we're running out of time, so I just want to ask you in my COVID confidential section a very basic question. During the lockdown, did you find out that you can rock out on the guitar? People found hobbies. Did you figure out that you're an amazing chef? Did you learn a new language? Geoff, the world, the festivalPass fans want to know what you have done creatively during this time.
Creatively, I have taken the time so I haven't learned how to play guitar. I'm surrounded in my house by guitars, but I don't know how to play them. But
that's all right.
My children does.
They make great, I have a guitar at home. My wife's like, that really looks beautiful here, but it's going to go in the closet because you haven't played it.
Exactly. But I think if I could be anything in the world, I would want to be a writer. And so I've spent a lot of time writing down experiences, thoughts, stories that have happened to me throughout the years. And I'm working on, at some point, someday, I'm going to put a book into the world that talks about marketing and common sense and how we've maybe lost the plot about really genuinely thinking about our consumers first. So I've done a lot of that. And then I've spent a ton of time on my Peloton bike, which has been amazing.
So are you telling me you've lost weight during this time? So that's just not fair.
I have. Yes.
I'm impressed. One thing that I took up was cooking, and I really found that it actually does de-stress you if you can figure out a couple of things. Yeah. So invested in a few new pots and learned how to make things like lemon curd, which is, if you'd like, I'm not bottling it yet, but if I do, I will ship you some. I don't think we're ever going to get there with it. Yeah. But there's so much, it was interesting to see, like, throughout the year, I'm making these different recipes and taking credit for it myself. And I was like, you just talked about writing. And of course, the last thing you ever want to do is plagiarize in writing. But in cooking, the plagiarism, and it's people ripping everybody off, including me, stealing stuff. My wife was like, this is really good. And I was like, yeah, I know. Well, here's what I did. And she's like, what you did was that you went on the Food Network app and you stole that from Rachel Ray. And I was like, yeah, that's what I did. But I did it myself.
Rachel wanted you to do that. That's the great thing. Here, take the recipe. Please take this.
She did. And here she's getting a shout out at Festival Pass Stories podcast. So
I bet. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's all. So speaking of promoting things, Geoff, how can we find you? Because this has been a fascinating conversation. I know you've got 75 other meetings to get to, so I will let you go. But how can we find out more about you and maybe get some pieces of knowledge from this book that's going to be your life's work coming out one day?
The book is just for me right now. It's just me writing down things that are in my head so I can get them out of my head. I mean, I'm on all the social media channels. I have nothing to promote. I just enjoy meeting new people, and I'm part of the festivalPass family. I believe in what you guys and what we're trying to accomplish here. And again, I think the world of live music and live events is going to come back. And when it does, I think festivalPass as a company, as an organization, is well positioned to help consumers experience these things in a new, interesting, and hopefully fun way.
Excellent. And when we do go back to festivals, friends, and you see those brands, say, you know what, Geoff was right. And you realize how important those brands are as part of this, because we need the brands. We need the money for the sponsorship for the festivals, and we need the festivals back. And we'll be back soon, and we'll be back next time on festivalPass Stories. Geoff Cottrill, thank you very much for the knowledge.
Thank you. The pleasure's been mine.
This is festivalPass Stories, a podcast series is told by the people who create and make festivals come to life. You will go behind the stage, kitchen, or studio door to hear the stories of passion and inspiration that started some of the world's most beloved festivals. Hear the startup stories and how an idea went from what if to what's next.